Gather around, PureSkill family. This your boy Sharif, and I'm back at it with another video. Let's get it. Okay, so production vlog day 6. Let's get into it. What I did today. So, what you guys are gonna see in the video, you guys understand that we're rigging for our to start making our own animations for our video game, and um right now I rigged the arms, which was very simple because we had a good base from the last video. If you haven't seen the last video, go check it out. It's production vlog day 5, right? Okay, so in production vlog 5, what we did, we kind of created all the tweak bones and the deform bones and really set the whole base rig up. So rigging from here on should be pretty simple, right? So I rigged the arms today, which I just started with taking the base rig and duplicating it so I can have two layers. One will be the forward kinematic chain, and one will be the inverse kinematic chain, which when rigging, you can switch between the two chains. Now let me explain to you what's the difference. Let's take this guy, right? So we have him, right? Okay, so we have this guy, right? So forward kinematic chains are the default. Default means this bone controls this bone, controls this bone. Forward kinematic chain says if I move this, all of this moves. If I move this, if I move, well, yeah. If I move this, only this and this move. You understand? If I move this, there's nothing for this to move, so it's very simple. It's forward kinematics. It's moving forward, right? Okay. Inverse kinematics is the opposite. Inverse kinematics says if I move this, if I move this bone, I can't do it on this because okay. Anyway, I'm gonna try to do it like okay. If I move this, right, it's controlling backwards. You understand what I'm saying? It's controlling backwards. I'm moving this, so it's controlling these bones, right? Okay. So you get the idea of inverse kinematics, right? It's controlling backwards. So you make you're gonna see me do it in the time lapse. So if it doesn't make sense right here, just hold on. But at the same time, ask for a tutorial. What's it called? Okay, the FK. What I did, the FK bones layer, the FK bones layer forward kinematics is default, right? It's default, like I told you earlier. I literally don't have to do anything, right? Then the IK, all I had to do was add an IK constraint. Then what you had to do, so I would take this bone, right? Add the IK constraint to this bone. Set this bone as the I would set this bone as the what's it called, the movable bone. This is what I'm gonna be moving, right? And then I have to set how many bones do I want it to move. So if I leave it at 0, right, if I leave the number count to 0, then it's gonna move the entirety. I'm gonna move this bone and it's gonna move the entirety of the rig. You understand what I'm saying? Because it has no reference. But if I say 2, then it's gonna move from this bone 1, 2 bones, right? Now I choose 2 because that's where the shoulder stops, and I only wanted to control up to the shoulder. But let's say I had like some crazy alien character and his arms was longer, right? And you had 3 bones, then you will choose 3 all the way up to the shoulder, right? Okay. You do that. Another thing with the IK bones, you want to set a pole target. That's going to be a bone that's kind of sits off to the back. You can see that in the video, right? What that does is allows you to set the angle of the elbow, okay? Now, so that allows you to set the angle of the elbow, right? Another thing, because forward kinematics is the default, is going forward, that means this bone is by naturally in charge of this bone. But the inverse kinematic chain constraint is going to make this bone in charge of that one. But that doesn't mean this loses its authority. So now what we have is a conflict, right? So that's going to make your rig go crazy, okay? So what you can do, I'm gonna tell you what you can do and what I do, right? What you can do is just unparent this bone from here. If you don't know how to do that, ask for a tutorial. Or just pay attention in the time lapse, you'll see me unparent. What's it called? Okay. What's gonna happen is all you have to do is unparent this one. The reason that means unparenting this bone from this bone, what that means is this bone no longer has charge over this bone, but this bone still has the constraint. Well, this bone has the constraint that's telling this bone, okay, you have control, right? So then it works. The reason I don't do that is because it's unparented, you can move this like forever and ever and ever, and it just makes it like make your hand like stretch away from the arm, which is weird, and I don't like that, so I don't do that. What I do is I create another bone, I duplicate this bone, so there's two, and I make this bone copy its all of its transforms. I make it copy its location, its rotation, and scale. That means this bone's not going to be doing anything, and I only move this bone, right? That way you can now move this bone and it does what it's supposed to do. You understand? If you don't, then you know what to do. Okay, so that's pretty much basically those two layers. On the base layer you add the copy transform, and then later we're gonna make an inverse and IK and FK switch, so that when you're animating you can switch between the two. Yeah, okay, so, and I'll tell you the difference between the IK and FK switch and the IK FK snap later. What's it called? Okay, so the other thing I did was make control for the hands and fingers. That was super simple. It's just a bunch of copy rotation constraints. You'll see me use it in there. The only difference, the only thing I added was when it comes to the fingers, right? When it comes to the individual fingers, essentially what you're doing is I'm creating a bone extra right here that's gonna copy all of this, all of its rotations, right? So let me use one finger to one finger, right? But essentially understand the idea that we're doing it on all the fingers. But look at these one, right? So you have one and you have your finger. These are made of 3 bones. You have 1 bone, 2 bone, 3 bone, right? I'm gonna rotate this one, and because it's copying its rotations, it's gonna rotate also. Because it's 3 bones, it's gonna do it individually, okay? So now they're copying its rotations. That's the basic. What I add is a before original. What the before original command is gonna do is, naturally, if I rotate and I do it, I can't rotate these by itself. It's not gonna rotate. It's not gonna do it because its command is to copy its rotation. But if I add copy its rotation before your own original rotation, then what it does is now I can rotate this on its own and rotate it. It's just making it simpler for the animator, essentially, because I don't want to lock the rotations from the animator to use. I want him to be able to do whatever he wants, even though I'm the animator also. But essentially that's the idea. So go ahead and check it out. Watch the time lapse. All right, guys. So that's the basic idea. So that's pretty much all I did for this one. In the next vlog, I plan to have the legs rigged and the spine rigged so that we could get onto polishing the rig. You understand? And then onto animation. Yeah. So um, what else was I gonna tell you guys? Oh, one more thing. When it comes to the face, usually in my rigs I would add face controls, so like eyelids, eyebrows, mouth open up and down, all those good things. The reason I'm not adding face controls is because this is a video game. If I was doing an animation, you have to understand animating for a video game and animating for a short is completely different, and you guys will always see a bunch of differences. In this case, I'm not gonna use a face rig. I'm not gonna create a face rig because of two reasons. One, for me as the player, I'm always seeing the back of my player. I'm never gonna see his facial expression, so it's no need of me animating that or even having controls to animate that. Then also, if I'm looking at another player in the game, I'm first of all moving quickly, not looking at one specific spot on the screen for too long at a time, and if I do happen to look at the other player's face, I'm not looking at their face to see animation. I'm looking at their face to shoot their face. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not looking at, there's no need for me to create like eye controls or blinking controls or different things like that. That's best used for an animation, and in the future you guys probably see me make those for that. Another thing, what you want to avoid using is bendy bones. If you guys have ever heard of bendy bones in Blender, that is a specific feature of Blender. You guys will probably see me use it later in my videos, but that is a specific feature of Blender. So what that simply means is exporting it to Unity, exporting it to Unreal or Maya or somewhere else, it's not gonna work. Your rig's gonna break in the other programs. You understand what I'm saying? So if your rig is only gonna be used in Blender, go ahead and use bendy bones. Me personally, I would use bendy bones in like facial feature rigs, especially like the mouth. You can get a nice thing. Essentially what bendy bones does is it turns one bone into like segments of bone so that you can adjust the bone like a curve. So that's great for creating facial features. You understand there's so many curves in the face, or you understand what I'm saying? So but that's only a feature in Blender. You can't export that to something else and it work. It's gonna break your rig. So when you're making rigs for a game, you want to avoid using bendy bones. But that's all I got for y'all today. So I'll see y'all in the next vlog.